Welcome to GRK lectures. In this class we discuss getw, putw and fgetw, fputw functions on the files. So putw or fputw, these two functions are used to write some integer values into a function, and getw, fgetw, these two functions are used to read an integer value from the file. Let us see the syntax of putw. Almost the syntax is similar to the putc method what we discussed in the last previous classes. So putw function, it takes two parameters. The first parameter is integer. Integer means the integer value what we are trying to write into the file. So that value we should mention as a first parameter in the putw function. So that integer, the first parameter, maybe directly we can write the value, otherwise the integer variable which contains our required value what we are trying to write into the file. Now coming to the second parameter, that is file pointer. The file pointer represents the file into which we are writing, and that is pointed by a particular pointer. So that pointer name we have to write as a second parameter. So whenever we are using these functions, so we should not mention, we should not write the file names. Instead of file names, we have to write the pointer name which is pointing to a particular file on which we are working. So similarly, if putw, so the syntax is similar to the putw function, but only the name is different, but syntax, as far as syntax is concerned, that is the same as that of the putw method function. So now coming to getw, and getw function, it is used to read integer value from the file. So it takes only one parameter, that is a file pointer. So file pointer means it is a pointer, so it is pointing to a particular file from which we are reading integer values. And while reading integer values, so this getw returns one integer value, so that should be stored in one integer variable. So that's why the getw return type is int. So coming to the fgetw, so this is almost similar to the getw function. So now let us discuss these putw and getw functions with an example. So first in the program, one file pointer we declared, that pointer name is p, and one integer variable n. And now I am trying to open a file demo.txt in the write mode, because initially I want to write some integer values into the file. That's why I am opening that one file, that is demo.txt, in write mode. So when that if open function successfully creates the demo.txt, so then a file will be created with the name demo.txt in the write mode. So now I am trying to write one integer value into that file by using the putw function. So in the putw, the first parameter, I am writing number, that is 65. The 65 I want to write into the file, that is demo.txt, and demo.txt is pointed by the pointer p. So that's why I used pointer p as a second parameter in the putw function. So then 65 so will be written to the file, that is demo.txt. So now after writing, I am closing that file. So once that file has been closed and try to open the file, that is demo.txt. So when you open the file, in the file, instead of 65, so we find capital A. Actually we have written 65, but 65 will not be written to the file as it is. So that 65 will be converted into its ASCII value. So that ASCII value will be stored in the file. The capital A ASCII value is 65, so that's why that 65 will be converted into capital A, and capital A will be stored in the file. So that's why after uh, creating a file and writing some integers using the putw function, if you open the file you cannot find those numbers, but its equivalent ASCII values can be found in the file. Now next I am trying to read that file which has been already created, that is demo.txt. So that's why I am opening that file in the read mode, because from that file I want to read the number 65 what we have written earlier. So that's why I am opening that file in the read mode. So then file will be created and it's opened in the read mode. So in that file capital A will be available. Why that capital A? Just like I told you. So then using getw function, so we can read the integer value from that demo.txt. So demo.txt is pointed by the pointer p. That's why in the getw function I'm using pointer p, because p is pointing to demo.txt. So in these functions, just like I already told you, we should not write file names. Instead of that, we have to write the pointers which are pointing to our required files. And getw, that returns means read one integer value from the function, sorry, from the file. So that integer value will be stored in a variable, that is a n variable. Okay. So now I am trying to print that n variable, means the value stored in the n on the console, that is by using the printf statement. So when we are trying to actually in the demo.txt we have capital A, but when we are reading and printing on the console, so we get as it is what the number we entered earlier, that is 65 will be printed on the console. So this putw function using putw, when you write the integer value, so instead of integer value will not be stored as it is, its ASCII value will be stored. But when we are reading there, so as it is whatever the number we stored earlier, we can get the number as it is. But when you open that file, our values what we entered, those values cannot be found in the file. Instead of our values, we can the ASCII values are going to, ASCII values will be stored in that file. In the previous slide, we discussed one example where we are writing only one integer to the file. So we can also write multiple integers to the file, and we can read multiple integers from the file. So that is when we want to write multiple integers to a file, the putw function should be called repeatedly. And when we want to read multiple integer values from the file, the getw or fgetw function should be called repeatedly. So when we are calling something repeatedly, means that function or statement or a block of code must be written in the loop. So let us see that with an example. So this is the file pointer p I created, and I am trying to open the file demo.txt in the write mode, that is w. And the demo.txt is pointed by the pointer p. So just like as we discussed just like this putw function is used to write an integer to the file. So when multiple integers we are trying to write to the file, so then the putw function should be called repeated. That's why I am initially opening uh, that is a loop, that is a while loop. So between in the while loop, between parentheses I am writing one. One means that loop is always true. Always true means that that will be executed for infinite number of times. Okay. So in that loop, so first I am reading one integer value from the keyboard by using scanf statement and scanf function, and that entered value is stored in the variable n, and this n value what has been read from the keyboard, so that should be returned to the file. So in order to write the integer to the file, we use a putw function. So that's why I'm using putw, and first parameter is n, that is n value we are trying to write to the demo.txt that is pointed by the pointer p. That's why as a second parameter I am using p. So n value will be written to the p. So here why I am using this condition n not equals to -1 means when you are writing some characters to the file, the end of the file will be represented by the marker EOF. In the last class we discussed it, that is end of the file. But when you are writing integer values to the function to the file, generally we use -1 as end of the file. So that's why here I am using -1. If we enter -1, that will be considered as end of the file, means end of our input. So that's why here I am using that condition. If that n value what we are entering is not equals to -1, then that value should be returned to the file. Okay. So now let us see this is one file. So into that file we are entering different integer values, that is 2, 3, 12 or 45, 8, like this different values I am entering. So when this entering should be stopped. So if we are trying to enter some characters into the file, so after entering all of our input characters or lines of text, so then you press Ctrl Z in case of the characters. But in case of these integer values, once your values entering is completed, then you have to press enter -1. So -1 generally treated as a end of the file. That's why here I am using this condition -1. If it is not equals to -1, so we can enter that input values. So if it is equal to -1, so then break. Break means we come out of that while loop. If it is not -1, we will be in the while loop and repeatedly we enter the input values from the keyboard, and those input values will be returned to the file, that is demo.txt. If it is -1, when you enter the -1, so that will be considered as the end of the file. So then we come out of the loop, means we are coming out of the loop means input values entering is completed. So after that, once values entering of input values is completed, so then we should close that file properly. Any operation, that is once write operation is over, that should be closed, and similarly when the read operation is closed, and that should be closed, means file should be closed properly by using fclose function. So now writing is over. Now coming to the reading, so when we are trying to read some values from the file, that file should be opened in the read mode. So that's why fopen function I'm using demo.txt, and I'm trying to open that in the read mode. So that's why I'm using letter R, and using that while loop, because here we are not reading only one value, multiple values we are reading from the file. So that's why getw function I'm using in the loop. So that is getw and parameter p pointer. So from that we are reading one integer, and that integer I am assigning to the n. So if that n not equals to -1, that means we have not reached the end of the file. So if it is equals to -1, we reach the end of the file, means there is no other input values in the file to be read. So if it is not equals to -1, so we get some n value, means that is the integer value, and that integer value I am printing on a console by using printf statement. Printf statement means that is printf function, predefined function. So like this, that loop will be repeated until that n value equals to -1. If it is -1 means we reach the end of the file, then we come out of the loop. So then the reading is said to be completed. Once reading completed, so then the file should be properly closed by using fclose function. So this will produce the output on the console, same what we entered earlier, means that is in the left side console. Console 2, 3, 12, 45, 8 we entered, as this same values will be printed as output on the monitor by using this read opening this file in the read mode and using getw function we can read and print the same as it is and out. So while reading we get as it is what we enter the values, but if you try to open the demo.txt file and check, we cannot find these values 2, 3, 12, 45, 8. So these corresponding ASCII values are some different garbage symbols can be found, just that I told you in the previous slide. This is one a simple example program. You can copy this program as it is on your which you are following this dev C++ or Visual Studio. So which one software you are following? So in that software directly you can copy this program and execute and observe the output. So in this program we are writing only one integer value, that is 65, to the file, and reading that same value and printing that on the monitor as it is. Thank you for watching my lecture.